Well, good morning, and thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. My name is Colin Rush with Clean Seed Agriculture Technologies, and today we're going to talk about the Smart Seeder Max and driving field profitability with data and technology. Now, there's a lot of what I call influences in ag technology that are designed to basically give you value at the at the field level and driving field profitability. But it's very difficult to sort through some of these confluences that are being almost driven down to the farm level to say that you have to deal with this, or I have an app to deal with this, or I have some data to deal with this. So one of my favorite quotes is actually from President Eisenhower. He says, like, farming looks mighty easy when your plow is a pencil and you're 1,000 miles from the cornfield. And this kind of unpacks a lot of things. It says, well, okay, is this a regulatory thing where we have, the federal government that wants to regulate, fertilizer for climate change? Is this a margin thing where fertilizer prices or seed prices or just fuel, machinery, land prices are really out of control? And what about the science part of that, which is, how do you deal with stuff like fertilizer efficiency? And then some new things like climate change and extreme drought, where we can't predict, we can't use the 5-year average as saying, that's what's going to happen next year, whether it's moisture, yields, etc. So those are all things that we look at. And the whole part of this is farming is extremely hard, and certainly no secret to anything that everybody is doing here today. But we talk about uncertainty around fertilizer use. The feds are saying reduce fertilizer by 30% by the end of 2030. We talk about margins, seed prices going up, fertilizer frenzy, all-time highs here for fertilizer that are squeezing margins. Climate change, extreme drought. And now we've got floods in British Columbia impacting that. We've got new potential sources of income, these carbon markets, but sorting through them and how do we make money and what do I need to put in to get some of that income out is key. And then finally, the science part of it is we know that fertilizer and fertilizer efficiency is a huge thing. And yes, it's vital to plants, but how can I maximize that? The issue with all of these is sometimes these things work in conflict with others. Is yes, I'd love to support climate change and reduce fertilizer use, but how do I do that when I know what I need to make a bushel of wheat or a bushel of canola? So when we look at this all, is field profitability isn't necessarily driven by creating the biggest yield in the field. At the end of the day is what did it take and what did it cost to get there? And if we look at kind of the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship, the right source, right rate, right time, right place, these advanced nutrient stewardship principles, they're designed to give you that balance to say, look, if you use fertility in your crops this way, we're going to basically not only maximize yields, but we're also going to do it in an environmentally sustainable way. If we apply that same thing on seed distribution, optimizing seed placement, seed distribution in there, and you couple to that, that gives you the basis of forming your field profitability. The problem is how do you do all of these things? How do you capture all the value, of all this, plus regulatory, plus science, plus drought, plus basically being a good steward of the environment? And the answer is if there was only some tools that could give you that balance, it could give you all those options based on your field conditions, your soil type, your stewardship program, all the way up to, how can I access some of those carbon profits that are potentially out there? And the answer is I'd like to introduce you to the Smart Seeder Max. We'll be right back. We just have a 1-minute video on the show, and we'll talk about the 4 R's right after that. Well, welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed looking at the Smart Seeder Max. We look at the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship: the right source, the right rate. We're going to look at the right time and the right place. These are what I call kind of the ground engaging side of things. The right time, match nutrients available to when crop needs them at the right time, and the right place, placing those nutrients in the root zone where crops can use them. So let's take a dive on that. So with the Smart Seeder Max, one of our huge value propositions is we have this true no-till single pass coulter shank combination with cutting action. Now, why is that important? At the end of the day, getting through previous year's crop residue is one of the most challenging things to do, especially in a no-till situation. Certainly anybody can seed into a black field, but we know, with everything from erosion to basically access to water, the amount of time, logistics, fuel, and effort that it takes to do those things, we know that certainly no-till is one of the waves of the future. We know it's something we've done in Western Canada for decades, and it seems to be catching on along the globe. So if we look at the coulter, it serves a couple different functions. One is it opens up a furrow to reduce the draft load of putting a shank down deep. But more importantly, it actually cuts and it parts the material, that trash, as it goes through it. It allows then the coulter to get into a perfect seed bed with that trash that goes to the side of that. Now we'll talk about the coulter in a second, but accessing that right time in a single pass with very limited field conditioning or no field conditioning, getting into that true no-till moment where you have the material that came off the combine and you're basically seeding directly into it. So we're talking about giving you a tool that gives you optimal access to the right time. So as we look at those coulter that comes into the ground, enters the ground at 90 degrees and starts to cut and to part that significant trash that is out in the field. And this next little clip here, you can see that coulter is cutting and moving that material right to the side, literally like a sawtooth blade. And this is one of the keys of the coulter shank combination. It allows us, unlike a shank, which may rake or drag some of that trash, to essentially cut and part it. Same thing with a flat disc. We see hairpinning where we're actually pushing organic material into the furrow, which then limits the ability from some of that seed soil contact. So giving you access to the right time is key. So what does that look like behind the unit? So when we cut and we part, that trash goes through in a different row. Now you can see of this is actually in very heavy pea stubble here that was actually not harrowed, not done at all, but it's basically cutting and pushing it between the rows. We're preserving that organic matter, and that's important for a couple of reasons. On the right time, obviously we're maintaining moisture there. We're suppressing weeds with that crop, allowing our crop to be established. But more importantly, as we preserve and build that organic matter, that allows additional things like carbon sequestration to be maximized. So again, with the right time, we get now to the shank part of our coulter shank opener. So we have a triple shot opener. It looks and acts differently than anything on the market today. So we have a 3/4 inch carbide tip that runs just slightly above where the coulter runs, and it actually fractures the soil. Then we have these little bio wings which stick out here, and they provide an agitation and aeration, almost a lateral fracturing that gives a very loose bed of soil. So as we cut and part that material, it actually, that fracturing and aerating the soil, acts as a soil warming. That pore space opens up. We have basically that warm air that is in the atmosphere that allows to penetrate through that pore space and gives that seedling the perfect environment to emerge in, because it is warming the soil along at the right time. So again, we're fracturing the soil, we're aerating, and it's functioning as a soil warming for that right time. So let's talk about right place, and you can see the different features of our triple shot opener, and there's a lot of numbers here, 6 different ones, but because we meter everything over top of the row, which we'll get into in a second, we are able to place products wherever you want in the soil. So up to 6 different placements. So we've got one out the right side seed ledge. You can see the kernel there as a representation. 2 out the left side. We can go 3 down deep, and that's a 2.5-inch vertical separation. We can do a true pair grow, which is number 4. We can do a side band and a deep band to split that product. And you have the singulation as number 6, which is an additional feature as well with the Max 5 and the Max S model. And just a little secret, if you switch 2 hoses on there, you can actually do with the seed and deep as well on the right side seed ledge. So it gives you this phenomenal difference, and it's about a 30-second adjustment here. There's 3 different adjustments on the unit. Eventually we'll electrify it and see if somebody wants to write a prescription around it, but it gives you that perfect placement of product based on soil type, your crop type, what your fertility package is, and where you want these products in the thing. So not only can we vary products over top of the row, again, which we'll talk about at the right rate, we can actually change the placement in there, and kind of a bit of an industry first where we give you that option of doing that. So what are the benefits of the right time, right place? Well, we know that soil fracturing aeration results, that access to that warm air, access to things like starter FOSS with the seed, and pushing that trash in between the rows versus letting it kind of rake and grow over top of it. This is on a competitor. We see this just as awesome quick emergence, this root development with the Smart Seeder Max, which is showing incredible results. So a little bit later in the in the plant development process, this was actually from this spring. And if you guys were like the rest of us, we seeded it to dust. There was no moisture, really to speak of in the furrow. On the left was a leading dual shank precision air drill side by side with the Smart Seeder Max, and you can see that shank that basically sealed the bottom of the furrow. It scrapes with the fert and the seed knife. And it's a very hard pan, especially when there's no moisture there. The Smart Seeder Max, we're actually getting down there at that 3.5, 4-inch plow pan based on your seed depth, and we're fracturing laterally as well. You can see this tremendous root growth that we have. One of the other things that we have with this right time, right place is, especially in very dry conditions or very wet conditions, we're allowing the Smart Seeder Max furrow to grab that water from the water table as well as infiltration action. So in a very dry year or a very wet year, you're going to see tremendous results with Smart Seeder Max. And if you look at this next page here, what does that emergence head start give to you? Well, it doesn't always give you yield. We have crops that catch up. We know that things can equalize pests, heat units, etc. If we look on the left-hand side, so the far right side here of your screen, that's a Smart Seeder Max. That actually was seeded 3 days later than the one next to it in the same conditions here. So at this stage, we seeded later, and we're actually really one true leaf ahead in staging. So again, very optimal spacing, access to fertility. And one thing we found is in that dry conditions, it had basically a hard pack. We almost need a hammer and a chisel to break apart the plants and the roots from the competitor, versus you could basically pull the plants out by hand in that very loose bed of soil. And it still had access to that water table, that moisture that wicked up from below. So we know that timing and placement of fertility can essentially eliminate losses from leaching, denitrification, volatilization, and mobilization and management. We know advanced 4R nutrient stewardship can reduce nitrous oxide by up to 14%. Again, is this important to the bottom line? Well, not right now. But as we look at, being regulated and perhaps the amounts of fertilizer we can put in, we know that some of these practices, everything from timing to placement, are going to become key into managing those greenhouse emissions through nitrous oxide. So again, having that option of product placement, having the ability to go in a true no-till thing is going to be key going forward. All right, we talked about right time, right place. Let's talk about the other 2 R's, the right source and the right rate. So we're trying to match that fertilizer type to the crop needs. We're matching the amount of fertilizer type that the crop needs at right rate. So as we look at it, one thing we know with fertilizer blending is that it's a compromise. Not every area of the field requires the same nutrients in the same proportion that you've put into the blend. So everything is a compromise, and plus they charge you for blending from your fertilizer retailer. As we look at it and our air system, because we meter over top of the row, why not do that blending in the furrow at exactly the right proportions of the products that you see? So again, our air system brings product in bulk on demand over top of each row. But in terms of actually putting it in there, we have 4 volumetric meters here, plus either a volumetric or a singulation one. You can essentially, have your macronutrients blended on the fly to the right ratios that you want in the field. So we want you to blend on the fly. We don't want you to compromise, but it is a huge thing. So getting into that right sorts of fertilizer is huge. All right, now we talk about right rate, which is where the Smart Seeder Max shines. We don't do central metering or section control from a cart. We're actually this giant printer. We have 300 different control points on a 60-foot machine, 12-inch spacing. Every row has an independent 5-product variable rate seeder, and we do that through stepper motor technology. These motors are very, very power efficient, about 20 to 30% of a DC motor, and they allow us to be infinitely variable from essentially ounces per acre that we can put on up to hundreds of pounds per acre, 250 pounds plus at field speed at about 5 miles an hour. So it gives you, without changing a roller, it gives you infinite variability right over top of the row. Now, why is that important? Well, if you look at this and you can imagine a product being turned, and you can see our cushion drive meter that's turning there. Every row gets exactly what it needs in the furrow based on what you prescribe, whether that's flat rate, we know it's even distribution in that. So the question becomes is, as you look at your as applied data, and maybe you've got an air drill out there, you pull your as applied data and says, look, this is what went down. Is actually what's in the furrow by row the same as what it says on your as applied map? And the answer is probably not. So when we look at this, why wouldn't you want to have your world's largest printer, or essentially printing your fields? The Smart Seeder Max, again, those 300 independent control points is really the world's largest printer for dry fertility. We can put exactly what is needed, not only at the right rates, micromanaging those rates row by row, meter by meter, independently, but we can also change where things go into the furrow. So what does that look like? Well, if you look at that, you can see that actually the meters are dumping into the funnels. We don't use air to get it down to furrow, we use gravity. So there's very even distribution. You can almost count the urea nodules as they go into the ground. You can see phos and a paired row wheat going down as well. But if you look at being able to print your fields, you're essentially looking at that very even distribution, and that is row by row control. We're not relying on a central metering system to hopefully that air is dividing evenly and not randomly. And air, in fact, does not divide evenly, and we know that. So what are you potentially losing from row to row variance? So this is a bit of an eye chart, but I'm going to explain it. So this is actually a triple replicated study. This was hand harvested rows in 3 different locations off across a 30-foot air drill. It's a Concord air drill. And if you look at it, the left side is yield. It goes from, kind of a low of 60 up to 180 bushels. The 3 different lines, green, white, and gray, are the 3 different studies. And across the bottom is the row number that is gone. And you think, well, wait a minute, this thing's kind of all over the map. And certainly there are impacts based on topography, water, soil type. Those do impact yields row to row. But if you look at, just look at row 4 here. This is an interesting one here. So row 4 onto the study has, about 90 bushels per acre on average, if you took that across the width of on an acre basis. And then the very next row, goes up to, 140 to 160 bushels per acre. And you think, well, wait a minute, yeah, I know there is variability in my soils, but you're telling me that these rows are all over the map. And the answer is this is the effect of air distribution. And we know this because when you have a plugged row, say on fertility on your air drill, and that row doesn't get the nutrients exactly what you need, we know that yield, and you can see it visually that row isn't yielding what it could because you're not getting that perfect distribution. So the answer is If this is what your flat rate product is doing with fertility, with inputs, with seed optimization here, what are you doing if you're saying I do variable rate? Now, variable rate, a lot of people have said, look, I haven't got the benefits of variable rate that I want to see. And the answer is well, there's probably a reason. Because if you're taking an error like this on flat rate and then you're compounding it by varying it, the outcomes are probably not going to be as predictable as you think they're going to be. So again, that right rate is huge as we go through it, and this notion of the Smart Seeder Max being a giant printer is key. So are you using your data efficiently to manage high resolution planning? Now, the Smart Seeder Max has a lot of levels of different value. If you wanted to do flat rate and say, look, I just want to get away from air distribution issues. I want everything to come out evenly. I want that turn compensation built in row by row. I want my row by row shut off. Absolutely, there's tremendous value there. But the Smart Seeder Max has so much more. Because we meter over top of every row is a 5-product, independent, multi-product, variable rate seeder. So as we enter with a high definition prescription, we enter a polygon off of a shapefile or a GeoJSON file. Every row enters that, it actually records both the speed of the unit, the heading, the GPS coordinates, and the command that says, hey, we need to apply this rate of inputs into the furrow. And we map that out every time it enters a polygon. So if we look at a 3-meter resolution shapefile, and we do 5 products variable rate, and we assume that they're changing every single foot, which is not the case, but that would be a potential of about over 14 million different data events. And every one of those would be logged by the Smart Seeder Max, row by row, product by product as we go through it. So now we get a little bit more exponentials. We do 1-meter resolution. We're potentially talking a maximum, again, not changing everyone, but 129 million. So getting down to 30 centimeters levels with that 1-foot resolution would potentially be almost 1.2 billion changes in a 160-acre field. And that's a lot of changes for any machine to handle, map, and to do the as applied. But the Smart Seeder Max was designed to do exactly that, to take these high resolution prescriptions with our onboard edge computing system here, our ability to basically handle and process data quickly, as well as upload and as applied in a compressed format, either in a CSV file, export it to a GIS type of situation where you can look at that as applied data. It's key. So we've kind of talked about the table stakes, the 4R nutrient stewardship. Well, what do we talk about now is pushing the boundaries. What other layers of value can the Smart Seeder Max bring? We talked about singulation, that plants per acre outcome. Things like intercropping, cover cropping, which are really exciting kind of new technologies. There's more value there. What about, what can the Smart Seeder Max do with some of the carbon programs? Things like dual or tri-hybrid planting. We know that some genetics do better in different soil types, different topographies, access to water. What about starting to blend those into a prescription to do different types of seed, based on where we're going? And certainly, we need to have that foot-by-foot traceability for all products and rates as we go through it. So we're talking about singulation, and I want to introduce you to a kind of a new configuration called the Max 5. So last year we introduced the Max S, which was it's a traditional vacuum planter disc, but it is driven by a stepper motor right over top of the row, giving you that very accurate plant by plant acre allocation. The Max 5, though, is a new configuration based on what some of our customers asked for, where you want that high resolution volumetric metering, where it's almost singulation, that 90% plus type, but it's based on a volumetric rate. We still want to count the seeds, and we have the 10-beam seed count sensor below that. But both are designed to give you that even distribution of product here and basically do that optimum plants per acre. So as we look at, we want that 1 canola seed every 2 inches or every 3 inches, or peas or corn or soybeans, we can definitely do that. And we can do it 2 different ways: that high resolution volumetric metering, which is almost singulation, versus actual singulation based on what you need. But the Max 5 has that flexibility to do other things like micronutrients, soil amendments in the row, or just seed as well. Cover crops, and I heard Wes Anderson talk about this from Crop Pro yesterday, and they are, especially north of the border, becoming more and more of a thing. We want to manage that black dirt. We want to have maximum seedbed utilization. Cover crops have traditionally not been really easy to do because with traditional air seeding technology, it's been difficult. Whether you're blocking off rows or you're going a second pass. But with the Smart Seeder Max, again, because we meter over top of every row, we can actually assign a row, whether it's odd rows, even rows, third rows, or custom. So essentially, you basically say, look, I want a cereal crop in between my broadacre crop, and I want to put this type of fertility with it, and then we can set the depth independently on each row. But it's very simple to set up in the software, and the Smart Seeder Max and the Seed Sync software take over from there. So again, just punching those in, defining where you want it. Some neat things. If you're a seed grower and you want to have male and female plants in here, you can define exactly where those things are planting at the same time. You can have multiple male plants and multiple female plants, and repeat that across the unit as well. So not only just cover crops, but why don't we talk about the evolution to true intercropping, where we're taking off those products as a commercial, multiple commercial products. So say you wanted to do peas and singulation. Define a singulation rate, saying, look, I don't want nitrogen with my peas, but I want it with my canola. That's whether it's a canola, pea, lentil intercrop variety. And that's very simple, again, to do. That's just what the Smart Seeder Max can do. This is literally talking about loading your products, telling them which bins they're in, and then just a quick setup in the software and your seeding. And it's basically putting those different crops down every single row at whatever you prescribe. Finally, kind of talking about some of the carbon programs, and it seems like every week there's a new carbon program announced, and we're kind of what I call in the messy middle, right? So everybody has the way they're approaching these things, how to access and sell carbon credits to consumers, and to issue those at the farm level. And all of them have different regulations. All of them pay different prices based on what you're doing. Look, in the messy middle, we talk about additional practices. Look, I've been in no-till, but they're not going to pay me if I've been there for 20, 30 years, but they're not going to pay me for no-till. So is it an additional practice? But yet, if I was out, cultivating and I've gone to no-till, they'll pay me for that. What about permanence? Permanence is in these programs is look, I've been in no-till, but next year I'm disking this up because whether it's weather conditions or logistics, I have to do it. These programs around no-till, strip-till, are they additional? Are they new? Bayer's got an additional one here that says, like, we're going to pay you $6 per acre per year if you use cover cropping. So all these programs have a couple things that different. One is they need to measure that soil carbon. There's a process to do that. And it's also about the traceability of your practices. So when we know that every 1% in organic matter, basically on the field level, equals about 20 additional tons of additional carbon dioxide sequestered in the soil per acre. We know that the Smart Seeder Max is a huge benefit there. So why not talk about the management of the in-ground, the 4 R's, the nutrient stewardship, preserving that organic matter, as well as the ability to trace it on a foot-by-foot, product-by-product basis. How do we do that? Obviously, our Seed Sync software, we're talking about digital sophistication meeting simplicity, and that is available. We can cloud this in real time, but if you're offline as well, we have the ability to manage that as well. And again, we've made it as simple as possible. It's essentially a web server. You can run this unit with your phone because all the computations are happening on the onboard computer. So let's talk about value, and value is certainly in the eye of the beholder. But we're talking about unrivaled value and capability. We know the Smart Seeder Max technology. We know we're going to reduce operating costs. We know we have the potential to increase yields dramatically, and we can do that in a very sustainable manner. But if you're a flat rate guy and you said, look, I just want that row by row shut off. I want the turn compensation. What is my value? Well, the value is going to be the savings of the inputs plus the fracturing and the ability of the opener to do what it does and the placement. But if we look at the value, say, look, I'm going to push the limits of my agronomy for my own farm. We have a huge list of things, everything from singulation, dual and tri-hybrid planting, narrow transport, fill time, true 5 product capability, blending on the fly, metering, uniform row distribution, overlap, changing products in the field, high resolution prescriptions. The value is how you determine it. We know that on average, it's about 2,000 acres, the average size of farm. Last year's kind of canola average for operating costs was about $273 per acre. We know that is low this year with everything from fertility, fuel, land, rent. That's going to go up dramatically. So savings and gains are very important, more important than ever, especially as we kind of navigate this new potential regulatory and carbon market thing. So we know that we can define it on operating cost savings. We know we're going to gain in margins, but how you push the value of the smart seeder will be up to you. We know there's a base level value there, but there's tremendous value as you utilize the capabilities of the machine. Finally, just a couple updates. So Clean Seed, happy to announce that earlier this year that we are building a new headquarters and assembly facility here in Saskatoon. We're literally moving boxes in as we speak. We're appointing new dealers. We're building products here for customers this spring, which is exciting. And we're always working on new products as well, including some new sensor integrations for real time, as well as new configurations, which will be released next year. We're going to be setting up a very aggressive demonstration schedule across Western Canada. So talk to your dealers. You can drop us a note at Clean Seed as well. But speaking of new products, I just wanted to show the group here. This is our new 2022 model year loading conveyor option. All the videos you've seen here, you think, well, how do you load that thing? And that was deliberately done like that. If you want to order it less a conveyor option, if you have a seed tender that can fill those carts very easily. What's neat about this is certainly you can fill every row, but actually the conveyor basically slides around, not underneath, and picks up the single point unloading, which is a standard option on all Smart Seeder Max bulk transfer carts. So again, kind of a neat innovation and is an option here for customers in model year 2022 and beyond. Finally, we call the Smart Seeder Max the smartest seeder on earth for a reason. There's a ton of value. We covered a little bit of that, not just about the features and benefits, but how these things can generate significant value for you on your farm and at your producer level here. So if you want to know more, please check us out online, smartseedermax.com. Send us a note. I'll be through FeedLoop and through the virtual booth here today as well. And I'm happy to take your questions. And finally, just, are you a smart seeder? There's tremendous value here. Doing things differently is not a vice. It's an exploration of how you can push and drive yield profitability on your farm level by reducing operating costs and increasing yield in a sustainable manner. So with that, that's kind of the end of the presentation. I thank you guys for attending. And Andrew, if there's any quick questions, I know we're kind of getting up against our time. So.
No, we're great. Thank you so much, Colin. Very informative presentation, and just love what you guys are doing here. I think you are kind of leading in precision farming right now, and great to see that. Some new stuff coming down the pipe as well. Just fantastic. I guess you said you're going to be out in some fields next year. How do people, if they're at the point where they say, listen, I see this, I see the value, I want to get involved. How do they get involved?
So there's a couple of different ways. If you know that we have a local dealer announced in your area, you can certainly go to them and put the request through them. There is also right directly on our website, it says Meet a Max program. So basically you can put a viewing request in and it goes right to our sales demonstration marketing team. And they'll see if we can coordinate logistics, if we can get in your area, perhaps on your farm, or certainly at least in a group demonstration that we can get you seeing this, running this thing, and seeing it with your own eyes. So there's a lot of value here. It's hard as to get through this in a half an hour, and you need to see it to understand it fully. But we're happy to take you through as long as it takes to see what might work on your farm. So.
That's great. I know you kind of talked a little bit about pricing and value and stuff like that, but has there been many comparisons from a traditional air seeder to what you're doing here, and kind of what kind of yield differences you're at least finding?
Yeah, so right now we're just into that experience kind of on the yield side, taking through things here, and they are some anecdotal, obviously, with some of the drought and hail challenges that we face. It's been difficult to measure, but the yield and in compared to the existing machines appears to be somewhat dramatic. What we're able to see. In terms of a costing of a machine, we have three different levels of configurations we currently offer: the Max 4, the Max 5, and the Max S. And all these have different price points based on what you require. If you want just the 4 volumetric metering, if you like the 5 volumetric metering, the one over time of the row, or you want the singulation, which is our flagship product here, they do go up. The units start, they're a premium based on the value that we have in there, but I think you'd be pleasantly surprised how they price in to the existing machine market, air drills, planters, etc. So, again, we look forward to working with anybody on here and generating that value right on your own operation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's good to see there's lots of options here for the farmer. And I think we'll see lots of excitement as you get on the field this year or next year.
Absolutely.
And I think with what makes us even more important is managing the issues with drought, with the climate change. These things are going to be ongoing. We'll ever get to a perfect world. So if we can manage this in a better way through plan.
We want to give the producers maximum flexibility. This Swiss Army tool of agronomy that can change year to year, and you can do the changes wherever you need it. So
I guess some really kind of a general question. Do you integrate with most of the platforms that exist out there right now?
Yes. So the Smart Seeder Max is a little different. We have our own computing system on board, so we can run right from the cab, from any tablet, iPad or Samsung or your iPhone or Android phone on here. So the interface is not really the limiting factor here. From an ability to use everything from platforms, absolutely. If it's a shape file, if it's a GeoJSON file, we can integrate that and we can spit out the same as applied. As we develop our cloud further, we'll be looking at API integration to different platforms that most of the producers use today. We're going to give access to that as well. So it's a seamless integration of that. We do have diagnostics and telematics here that we can access on the fly as well. But it's all designed to give you the best user experience. At the end of the day, very, very seamless environment to work in.
Yeah, that's really important, especially if you've started down the path of kind of precision ag and you've got a shape file or something like that. And you got to make sure that whatever you've committed to, you can then use it in some other format or another equipment supplier, because you don't want to have to redo that every time. So that's really important. I guess exciting that you're building in Canada and the new plant in Saskatoon. So I think that's exciting for Canadians.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's been you mentioned there's been some interest in the U.S. market. What's the global plan for?
Yeah, so we're actually accelerating. So you're going to see some announcements here shortly, but we're actually sending out small prototype demonstration units here to different markets. Some are more developing markets, some are more established markets here. And it's really kind of a year ahead of shipping and exporting full machines. One is to make sure that the Smart Seeder Max technology works in those global areas. But very shortly in 2022, you're going to see us emerge in a couple huge global markets here that we're working, some with local partners, some with just very aligned people that want to see the Smart Seeder Max in those countries. So exciting times. I don't want to spoil the announcements, Andrew, but they should be coming shortly here before the end of the month. So.
Oh, that's excellent. So make sure you let us know, Colin. We'll make sure that our attendees find this out, and we'll share it with them as well. So
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Doesn't look like we have any other questions here, Colin, but I really want to thank you for your time. That was really excellent to watch your presentation, and I really enjoyed. I've been really enjoyed watching the development of the smart seeder over the last 7 years. So
yeah, we definitely joke it's a 10-year overnight success. We definitely did the hard route, which is we built the entire machine from the electronics to the software to the opener. But because we did that, we've really put in that unprecedented flexibility for agronomics at the producer level. So proud of our team. It was a hard go to get here, but we're pretty excited now to enter that commercialization and get these in the hand of customers. So
excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you at the next presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andrew.